So it is time for the property perspective, and as usual, we have the guys from Etchells and Young in the studio, and this afternoon he's joined us live. Hopefully you got rid of that cold there, Harry.
Remarkable recovery after that.
Fantastic.
Man flu almost got the better of me, for sure.
Chana, and I know that man flu is it's a real thing. I mean, people think that it's a old wives' tale.
I was flat for a week. It was terrible.
I know. I mean, the remote just seems so far away. She's trying to get a cup of coffee out of anybody is almost impossible. I know the man flew well, but somebody that is joining us in the studio as well, and she will probably disagree with both of us, is Louise Barkhuizen. She is from MVC Incorporated, and tell us a little bit about MVC Incorporated and exactly what you guys do and how you fit in with Harry.
Hi Al, thanks for having me firstly. Well, Marie Van Coller Incorporated, we were established roughly around 2007, with our main area of focus being conveyancing. Our firm does offer a whole bunch of other areas of legal services. However, we specialize in conveyancing, which range from transfers, bond registrations, bond cancellations, all the way to new developments. So we deal quite a bit with new developers. Then we have a very long-standing relationship with Etchells and Young, which started very shortly after we were established in 2007.
Oh, okay. So Harry, how does this all fit in with you? The transfer conveyancing, how does it fit in with the estate agents?
Well, Al, yeah, it's the last step in our process as an agent once we've done a sale. So the agent has gone out there, listed the property for a seller, got a buyer, got the offer to purchase signed. The bond has now been granted. And what needs to happen next is the conveyancing process, or transfer as we call it, and that is where the property legally transfers from the seller to the buyer. But it's quite a process, and Louise is going to talk us through that. And just to add that MVC are definitely our preferred supplier here when it comes to conveyancing services. And I got to say that we do deal with other attorneys because the seller does have the choice of selecting their attorney. We try and convince them, if it's possible, to use MVC. And we have some nightmare stories when you're using a conveyancer who doesn't know what they're doing, who is not on top of their game as Louise and MVC are. So I've got to give them the punt, but it's very well deserved.
Well, on the back of that, Harry, I'm going to ask Louise. Louise, what does the conveyancing process consist of, number one? And can any attorney be a conveyancer? And what other parties are involved as far as conveyancing is concerned?
Sure. So the conveyancing process is a regulated legal procedure handled by a qualified conveyancer. So to basically answer your second question, no, you have to be a qualified, firstly, an attorney that has passed the conveyancing examination before you can be a conveyancer. So not anyone can just become a conveyancer. Then as for the conveyancing process, it is a legal process that basically consists of the transfer of immovable property from a seller to a buyer. The process starts basically with the estate agent when signing the offer to purchase. So the offer to purchase is then signed by the seller and your buyer, which then creates your legal binding agreement. Once the agreement is signed, a conveyancing attorney will be appointed to attend to the transfer of the property. So that agreement gets sent to the attorneys. They then obviously from there onwards make contact with your seller and your buyer, obtain the required FICA documents, then basically start the process once the full purchase price has been secured, which will either be cash or bond approval, depending on what the buyer goes for. And then from there onwards, we basically handle the entire process from obtaining cancellation figures on the seller's existing bond. We obtain rates clearance from the municipality, levy clearance if applicable from the body corporate and the homeowners association. We prepare all the legal documents pertaining to the transfer as well as the bond registration if applicable. Submit all our documents that is required to start in order to obtain a transfer duty receipt or exemption depending on what is required. And then obviously make sure that the seller provide all the relevant compliance certificates, which is again can be from your electrical compliance, gas compliance, electric fence compliance. So all those things will be required prior to us transferring the property and will also be stipulated as a requirement in the offer to purchase. And then once everything is met, all the conditions are in place and all the parties are ready to proceed, the documents are then submitted to the deeds office, which is a simultaneous lodgement from the transfer, bond cancellation and the bond attorneys. From lodgement, it roughly takes about 7 to 10 working days then for transfer to take place, and that is then when the buyer becomes the new owner. And also the same stage when the seller will then receive the payment of their proceeds and the agent payment of their commission.
You see, this all sounds like a very drawn out thing, and probably a question I want to ask you is, what is the most common issue that can cause delays during this process?
Well, as you can imagine, each transaction is different.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got different buyers, different sellers. However, the most common things we've seen recently is agreements not being signed correctly. People are relying so much on technology that they want to sign everything electronically, just do electronic PDF signatures, and unfortunately in our law that is not yet accepted. So wet ink signatures are required on an agreement when it comes to immovable property for the agreement to be legal. And it's difficult to explain that to someone that does not have access to a printer or the newer generation that relies on technology, because they cannot understand how is that even possible that you cannot accept it. But unfortunately, our law does not make provision for that when it comes to immovable property, unfortunately.
Okay. So, Harry, are you guys not meant to get the FICA documents from your clients? And in that way, I would imagine you would obviously save a whole lot of time, right?
Correct. Also, part of what we do need to do in this process is to get those FICA documents, and as Louise mentioned, that the FICA documents is just one of the potential hold-ups and problems in this last hurdle. I mean, there are a number of other things that can go wrong as well. But yes, for sure, we are meant to get the FICA documents, and the reason for FICA, I mean, the reason why there's this thing called FICA, Financial Intelligence Center Act, is to prevent money laundering and the funding of terrorism, okay? So how does that sit with property? One might think that there is no link, but obviously there is a link, because property is a soft target for terrorists to launder money, to hide money, and also, well, they need a place to stay, I guess, as well. So the purpose of FICA is to then identify and to then get to know exactly who these clients are. And what most of the public out there probably won't know is that every time that you deal with an estate agent, whether it be a rental, whether it be a sale, whether a car dealer buying, selling a car, going to a casino, there's a very specific process that we all have to follow. So besides identifying you, getting copies of your documents, there's actually a screening process that we do, and we check, are you a terrorist? Are you on the United Nations terrorist list? So all of these things are happening behind the scenes. And often, clients get quite aggrieved and peeved off at us when we're asking them for this personal information and all this stuff. But yes, it is something that we're supposed to do. And if we get those documents clean and concise and upfront and can supply them to the conveyancer, then it is one of those little things that we do that makes the step, hopefully, just that little bit quicker.
So Louise, it sounds like there's a lot more costs involved for the seller here. Is there any way that the seller can reduce or minimize the costs involved at any stage? And what are the problems that cause this during these stages?
I think the biggest problem with sellers is they tend to have the idea that all the costs are for the buyer, which is not completely correct. So the first step for a seller would be is to obviously make sure when you put your property on the market, find out what is the settlement on your existing bond. Make sure you provide notice to your bank, because obviously that notice period runs for 90 days, which could not just have a delay on the matter, but also could cost you, because that the penalty interest charged for that period is equivalent to 3 months installments. So obviously the higher your bond, the bigger your penalty, and that can obviously make or break a deal for some clients, because you might sell your property at a loss.
Wow.
And then the best would then further be for them to start making arrangements, find out who's the best contractors in the area to get your compliance certificates in place. Do not wait until last minute to find the electrician to do your compliance certificate, because then you're going to be paying more. Because if you give them more time to do the work, you're probably going to be saving a bit. And then if you are aware of any electrical problems, accounting problems, water leaks, or anything with the local municipality, sort it out beforehand. Otherwise, it might have a delay on the transfer, or you might end up paying a whole bunch more on your rates clearance figures than you should have been paying. And to get your refund might also take a bit of time.
Makes a whole lot of sense. So between the two of you, Harry and Louise, any last bit of advice when it comes to buying or selling, or to the buyers and the sellers listening right now?
So I think, as Louise was saying, there's quite a lot of stuff that needs to happen in this process. If it all works well, it's a wonderful short process. It's a couple of weeks and it's done. When things go wrong and gets extended, and people are waiting to move into a house and they can't move in, people are expecting to move overseas and this house isn't transferring, so it becomes a problem. So the number one bit of advice that I can give to both buyers and sellers is plan and ask questions. I mean, you're dealing with the agent. Louise mentioned this is where the agent only earns their commission once this deal transfers. So I promise you, they are motivated and eager to help you. So ask them the questions. If you're not sure, find out. And the same thing, at this point, you're dealing with the conveyancers as well, both the buyer and the seller. Speak to them, get their advice. They are pros and they deal with this stuff every single day. So yeah, don't delay with stupid things like paying your City of Joburg municipal account every single month. If that is not paid for a couple of months, suddenly that adds up.
Fair enough.
Then when they issue a clearance, they add a penalty or an estimate onto that as well, because they reckon it's going to take a while to transfer. And then you get quite a big lump sum that now comes off your proceeds. So just plan the process, make sure your accounts are paid up to date, your municipal accounts, your levies if it's in the body corporate or sectional title, and speak to the agents and the conveyancers who are helping you in the process.
Makes a whole lot of sense.
So I would just like to add on to that and say that, remember, property is probably going to be one of your biggest, most valuable assets or investments you're ever going to earn. So do not sit in the dark. Do not rely on Google or whatever other sources to get your answers. Understand the process. Speak to the professionals and get the right answers and the right advice. Because if you Google a question, you're just going to get an answer to your question. You're not going to get feedback as to what the delay is, if there's a rates query, if there's the issue of SARS. Google will not give you those answers.
Fair enough.
But if you speak to the professionals and get the right feedback, you'll understand the process a lot better and you'll probably enjoy the process a lot more.
Nice. So I think in a nutshell, it is best that you speak to the professionals, and the professionals obviously being you guys from MVC Incorporated, and you, Harry, from Etchells & Young. So if people want to get hold of you, Louise, how do they do that?
They can contact our office, which is 011 318 1921. They can also go onto our website, which is www.mvclaw.co.za, or email me directly. It's Louise, Louise, @mvclaw.co.za.
Well, Louise, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. It's been lekker having you, and I think a lot of people have learnt a lot when it comes to the process of selling your house and how things can go right and wrong in both matters, I would imagine. And Harry, thanks for coming in and bringing us this guest that has brought us so much insight when it comes to buying and selling a house.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, you're most welcome.
But my favourite time of the afternoon, of course, is the property of the week. So who we got our property of the week from this afternoon?
So we spoke to Marius a little earlier, and he's got that available for us.
Well, let's hear what Marius has to say.
Thanks, Al. This week's property of the week is a state-of-the-art 3-bedroom, 3.5-bathroom, fully furnished penthouse apartment that's for rental in Sandton. It's situated in a complex that's called Metropolis on Park. This 274 square meter masterpiece is ideally suited for a corporate rental, boasting a fully integrated gourmet kitchen with Miele appliances. It's open plan living at its best, and it offers 2 balconies with amazing views over the Sandton skyline. This apartment has air cons throughout, double glazed windows, smart glass and high-speed fiber. The building has a fully equipped gym, pool, and you also have direct access into the mushroom park, where all the tenants can go and run, walk, or just enjoy the wide open spaces. The complex offers top-of-the-art security, 24-hour security guards at the gate, CCTV cameras, electrical fencing, smart access control, to name a few. So if you are in the market, or if your boss or any of your employees are looking for a place to stay and has a budget of 65,000 Rand per month, get in touch with Marius on 082 302 9915 or email Marius at etchells&young
The good times never stop. 919